Okay, it's
Okay,
coming.
here we go.
All
Here
right.
we go.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blue Star Rising, Templar Awakening. This is Michael Henry Dunn, and that other wonderful being you see up there is the one and only Reverend Maia Nartoomid. Hello, Maia, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing pretty good as an other wonderful being.
All right. Yeah, well, we just had like 3 minutes of a giggle fest before we could even do a straight take on a welcome to you folks. So this is as sober as we're likely to get today. Anyway,
It is the solstice.
it is the solstice. Yeah, right here at 9 a.m. Colorado time. You know, I toasted with my cup of tea, the rising of the light. And I went and I looked at all the, the articles you can bring up on Google on what exactly happens with the solstice and why is the Earth's axis tilted this way and why is it summer right now in the southern hemisphere and north here. But for our purposes, of course, it's just about the return of the light. Mm-hmm. And it is, of course, deeply significant spiritual festival in traditions the world over. And a very appropriate time to be sharing with you this message for 2022 from the Thoth'S Extreme, which is the Osiris Time Map. And when I first saw this video, I don't know, maybe I just had the the deep solstice pre-return of the light blues or something, and didn't get it at all. But on the second viewing, I thought, wow, this is extremely powerful and important. And the idea that there is, first of all, there is this toroidal quality to time where the high beings that Maia saw in a vision are continuing to work across time with us in a flexible unfolding that our intention and our tuning in with essentially the cosmic Christ consciousness is extremely powerful in this toroidal dynamic of time. And what it essentially comes down to, one of the parts that most affected me of this video we're about to show you, is that it shares with us the specifics of, if you're watching this program, chances are that you've awakened to some soul desire that you have to be of service in this astonishing and sometimes frightening time that we're in. And so the message here is about your role and your vision, and specifically how we can remain sovereign in our own soul's destiny while also being unified in spirit. And that we have reached a point going into 2022 when we can no longer be anything but servants of the light. So is there anything that you'd like to say, Maia, about the video and how it came to you?
Well, the video actually I made recently, but the what I'm reading and commenting on was a vision and information that came to me after the vision to fill in the blanks, so to speak, that was actually given to me in December 19th, I believe, or something like that. You'll hear it on the video of 2017.
No, you said 2019.
I did 2019. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was December of 2018, moving into 19 is what I think it was. Anyway, it's in there somewhere. And
right.
The reason I'm sharing it now is because it was about now, not just this year, but the whole path that we're on now. And I think it's so significant for 2022, because when I asked Phil for a message for 2022, he kind of pointed me back to this message. And so it's not just for 2022, but it's for what we're moving into and what we're doing right now. And after you've listened to the video, we're going to discuss a little bit more about what that means to us, this map of Osiris and all of this, and how it relates to us, and how we can get in touch with the energy of this whole idea. It's not just, oh, well, that's interesting, it's like, wow, how fantastic. No, it's something that is, you can apprehend. It's something that you can work with on a deeper level.
Yeah, and it also goes directly into the dynamics of the ascension process.
Yes.
And how that's unfolding right now, how we can tune in and participate and joyously fulfill our heart's desire to be of service, and in this time that we chose to be born into. God help us. So without further ado, let's share with you now the video. It's about 18 minutes, I think, right?
Something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, put together as usual with Maia's beautiful artistry. And so we'll be right back with you after we share the following.
And of the day none has spoken, nor have their eyes seen that which is manifest therein. The coming is upon wings of light that circle in the gray dawn as a nesting anka bird. The egg of the earth is born anew, cracked from its sacred womb. Out of its center the chick arises, its beak a slender knife that cuts through the weave of the world. Lo, a web of gold is spun, a pattern of the ageless stars. Souls move upon its fine threads, gathering eternity in a wave of exaltation as they plunge into the heart of the blue star. My Akashic translation from the Ra-Maj Codex, a pre-deluge text of prophecy written by the light bringers of the Mayan world. On the date of December 26, 2018, while lying down for a rest, I had a flash of an image. Even though it was for maybe 2 seconds, every detail of it was burned into my brain. I saw a statue I knew to be Egyptian. It was of a man, but only from his navel to just above his throat. In the carved stone, he cradled a bird with a long beak that was curved downward. The eyes of the bird were very large. After the flash, I knew that the statue was of Osiris, and the bird was the Bennu. I received then that the Bennu would usher in a new era for the earth, beginning in 2020. However, I was shown that 2019 was like a long corridor leading to the sacred chamber of 2020. I had an experience last year with the Bennu in which I saw the hand and vest of a man I knew was the Count Saint-Germain. His vest was rather fancy. He was holding his hand up, about the level of his solar plexus. It was surrounded in a ruffled cuff. In his hand there was a large coin attached to the vest, and he was flipping the coin back and forth. It was not a nervous gesture. He was doing this with great deliberation, while he wished it to appear as just an idle movement. I could see that on this coin there were engravings, each side something different. I knew the coin had been created by him. It was not regular currency. I was frustrated that I could not see the symbols clearly on each side of the coin. Later, I asked my inner plane's mentor, Thoth'S, what those symbols were. He shared with me that on one side of the coin were the rivers of Eden, and on the other, the Benben stone, which is the egg of the Bennu bird. In turning the coin back and forth again and again, he was creating a time portal opening. But that is another story. So I knew a little about this mythical creature. I did not know until after my vision of December 26th that this bird is identified with both Ra and Osiris. To clarify, it might be more accurate to say I did not remember this, as I must have read it at some point. To quote from the web on the Bennu bird, according to Egyptian mythology, the Bennu was a self-created being. The Egyptian meaning of the Bennu is palm tree and also purple heron. This bird is clearly associated with the phoenix, and its legend is associated with the Bennu. The Bennu bird has red and golden plumage and is the sacred bird of Heliopolis, one of the oldest cities of ancient Egypt. The sacred Bennu has been also interpreted as the reincarnation of the gods Ra and Osiris. Heliopolis is referred to as the city of the sun and is known as one of the oldest Egyptian cities. The ancient Egyptians believed that the Bennu created itself from a fire that burned upon a holy tree in the temple of Ra, and yet others believed that it exploded from the heart of Osiris. It was said to have flown over the waters of Nun that existed before creation, landing on a rock and issuing a call that determined the nature of creation. It was also a symbol of rebirth and was therefore associated with Osiris. Some of the titles of the Bennu bird were He Who Came into Being by Himself and Lord of Jubilees. The latter referred to the belief that the Bennu periodically renewed itself like the sun. Its name is related to the Egyptian verb wbn, meaning to rise in brilliance or to shine. The pyramid text referred to the yellow wagtail as a symbol of Atum, and it may have been the original form of the Bennu bird. New Kingdom artwork shows the Bennu as a gray heron with a long beak and a two-feathered crest, sometimes perched on a benben stone representing Ra, or in a willow tree representing Osiris. Because of its connection with Osiris, it sometimes wears the Atif crown. That is the ending of the quotes, and so now I say, the carved bird I saw, cradled in the hand and arm of Osiris, was not super large. It had very big eyes, much more so than any heron I had seen pictures of. I knew its legs were shorter, although I could not see legs in the flash I had. And there was that curved beak. I did feel that the carved bird I saw was depicting a once living creature. The symbology of the Bennu would seem to fit my receiving that it would usher in a new era. But there was more. I was told that the statue I saw had been created by a pharaoh who was having experiences of being united with Osiris. This would have been some form of mediumship where his soul stepped aside to allow Osiris to come through and speak to his scribes. I'm not sure of the exact relationship, but the pharaoh was knowledgeable of what was occurring and a willing participant. He had the statue carved to represent himself as Osiris. So why was he holding the Bennu? Next, I was shown a map of Egyptian gods and hieroglyphs. The tree of Osiris is woven into it. It is kind of like a family tree, but instead of genealogy of humans or gods, it defines a special path in time. This is an exalted timeline risen among many to be carried in the curved beak of the Bennu. The figures on the map represented incarnate souls in various times who make choices, do things which keep the path in alignment with the true exaltation. These persons, I feel, personify groups of souls, but one soul heads the ship, so to speak. On the map is given that honorable recognition. I see this Pharaoh, whose name I am being given as Nefer-Ra, has a wife, Kabiet. At first I thought she was his daughter, but then I realized she was his wife. Kabiet is a visionary as well, and is able to help Nefer-Ra translate that which he receives when Osiris enters him. This time map is her handiwork, pieced together from the information received from Osiris through the host of Nefer-Ra, with some added keen interpretation of her own. The time map is called the way through, or abiding with, the river of Newt. According to the Thoth Akasha, Newt was the most ancient expression of the later Newt. Ra, of course, is the sun god. Newt is the sky goddess. Thoth is showing me that the river of Newt is the Rana Time Wave. From my Akashic translations of the early 1990s, the Rana is the true flow of time in this universe. The Earth and other worlds are created as a path for karmic resolution to prevent certain forces from building within the sacred trinity of Pleiades, Sirius, and Orion, where the pure thresholds of light might become violated in time. These worlds, including the Earth, are created within a parallel construct of the Rana time flow, but still aligned to it. Once the Earth had been created, further karmic forces built, and eventually the Earth fractures away from its parallel track with the Rana time flow, and the Kali Rift is formed. This is actually a fracture in the Earth's time grid or flow that was created as a result of interdimensional implosions, which happen sequentially in a linear construct, but simultaneously in a true perspective of the sphere of time. In other words, as a result of sentient will pursuing its own course of action, as a separate focus from that of the true time grid consciousness of the Rana time flow, certain occurrences came together in Earth's time construct as a synchronous event to cause a fracture of true time in our reality, thus creating the Kali Rift. So the Kali Rift is the gap that exists between our true time flow and where we currently reside in the continuum. Kabiet, wife of Nefer-Ra, has depicted the true path of time in this universe. To make such a statement as the true path of time in this universe is an oversimplification of the enormity and complexity of this topic. However, this article is focused on my vision of Osiris and the Bennu, so I'm not wishing to stray too far from the topic at hand. Suffice to say, Kabiet's river map would have shown the key points of cosmic energy dynamic moments which would lead us from the rift back into the wave and further guide us down its course. In the map, the Bennu bird was depicted as the wayshore. He was Osiris as the Bennu. We are now, as I write this, on the brink of 2019. This coming year, we will take our first steps down the long corridor, inclining upward into the sacred pyramid temple, which is a primary node within the Osirian map of the wayshore following Newt. From a previous Thoth's transmission on Newt or Newt. The archetype of Newt is the living symbol I give for the new Earth star creation matrix. It is more than just a creatrix for the new Earth, but certainly incorporates that dynamic in her divine radiance. The original Newt represented the Lemurian or Mu principle of going forth to heal, restore, create, and resolve, and also to expand generative radiance. She is the creatrix of the dwelling place of the gods. That is, this archetype represents the universal laws which consign actions to basic creational forces. Newt sends rays of her creation through the whirling pillar or Yeshuda. It is her cosmic rays which compose the Elohim or creation. What is our role here, our vision, and how may we better facilitate the journey? our role to unmask fearlessly and shine the light of who we are. Our vision to keep our eyes on the path. Let no distractions overcome us. Hold firmly to the golden thread leading us to the threshold of the star of our becoming. Let our sight be filled with the glory of the station we represent on earth. We facilitate the journey best by helping one another. Love, compassion, giving of self. While we are sovereign in our soul, we are unified in our spirit. We can no longer be anything but servants of light. A brief definition of Yeshuda. The movement of emptying and filling the cup or containment field that is whirling or spinning light codes, creating CRPs, which are critical rotational positions, in the axis of the crystalline particles of the planet. This whirling motion is stimulated through what could be called cosmic Christ consciousness. The Yeshuda is a natural dynamic which emanates from the central sonatoma of all planets that contain incarnated souls which have evolved as a world consciousness to a certain degree of evolution. The Yeshuda projects out from the center of the planet, being called by the central sun of the galaxy, summoned further by the central sun of the universe. As this dynamic moves like a giant clock, in sync with the movement of solar and lunar shells of the planet, it collects the dew of Christ align, sparks from the souls of the planet into its cup or containment field. The stem of the Yeshuda feeds these sparks down into the inner earth sonatoma. They are then sent outward from the earth sonatoma back into the cup, reborn with new light programs and poured back like rain from glorious thunderclouds into the human soul spectrum once again. Yeshuda is the primary mechanism for what we are calling ascension. Through its receiving and pouring out, it is the grail of our first and final hour on this planet and all in between. That ends the article I wrote in December of 2018. So now, in December of 2021, on the eve of the new year of 2022, I look at this, I reread it, I think about it, and I see that the process is still very much ongoing. This map that the two Egyptians worked with, connecting to the entity Osiris and the cosmic presence of the universal Osiris, is something that is continuing now. Because time is not really linear, it's toroidal. They are still there, working on that map, and we are here in 2022. Think of the implications of that. This map is not inflexible. They're receiving signals, codes, if you will, light quantum from the heart of the constellation of Orion, right in the center of the trapezium, where all the creational codes flood this universal system that we understand, that we are holographically within. So it's not like these two Egyptians are creating our reality, not at all, but they are mapping it. And doing so, they are opening stargates, if you will, for these greater codes, these greater alignments to take place for us now. In conclusion, I feel impelled to say, and so it is.
All right, and we are back. So, well, the second time that I watched this, I went through and I made even more extensive notes than I usually do, because there is so much to unfold here. Beginning with the bird, and well, your vision of this man who turns out to be a pharaoh, who the term being overlighted by Osiris came to me, right? That he felt this overlighting in his being of Osiris.
Yes.
And that the Bennu, was there being held by him, and that the bird is identified with Ra and Osiris, and is the sacred bird of Heliopolis, the most ancient city in Egypt. Now, when you mentioned that the Bennu bird was viewed by the Egyptians as having been self-created, this reminded me of what we shared last time about the Black Madonna, and the Midnight Sun, that the cosmic divine feminine, in some mysterious manner, containing within herself all the manifestations and unfolding, as with the Hindu Maha Prakriti, divine mother, who contains within herself Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, that she unfolded out of herself her own masculine, impregnating her own feminine to create the cosmos. Do you see any relationship to that in the self-creation aspect of the Bennu?
Oh, yes, I do. And I believe you could probably find it in a lot of the myths, and I put that in quotes, of self-creating principles, because it comes right out of the whole concept of the creatrix, capital C, which is, of course, a divine feminine principle.
Right, yeah. And that is, that suffix trix, trix, is also applied to, for example, it's a subject of some controversy in the Catholic Church when you have a pope such as John Paul II, who was very devoted to the Virgin Mary, and that he actually was rumored to be looking at coming out with a papal bull, which is, if the Pope, is at a press conference and he says something, okay, well, that's a human being, the Pope saying something, but then a papal bull is the Pope speaking ex cathedra on matters of faith and doctrine, which, is the infallibility thing, right?
Right.
So the doctrine that he was rumored to be coming out with was to actually elevate the Virgin Mary as church doctrine to co-redemptrix with Christ, which I thought was very significant in relation to this, cosmic Virgin Mary reality that we were sharing last time. So moving on, I was also very intrigued by this symbol of the gray heron with the very large eyes, and that this was a symbol of Osiris. Is that what you were receiving?
Well, actually, the gray heron that's out of a quote that I found on I have a quote in there from Wiki.
Oh, right.
That's what they're talking about. They're saying some are postulating that, because the gray heron is pictured there, that some of the Egyptians are saying, oh, well, it's associated with the gray heron. But then they go over here and they say, oh, well, these Egyptians think it was the yellow-tailed something or other.
Oh, okay.
We come back to Thoth, and all I'm getting, I don't know what the name of it was in the ancient days, because we have to remember that the Bennu comes from pre-dynastic Egypt, and so this
is the Zep-Tepi era.
Right. The regular Egyptian archaeologists, oh, well, they were just primitive people. Of course not. That's where we're coming to the Zep-Tepi, the companions of Horus, the true star companions, and all of that energy comes in. So that's where the Bennu comes from. And so the later Egyptians are going, well, let's see, what kind of a bird was that?
So they
didn't really know. But the bird that I saw, I truly believe, in my humble opinion, was the actual Bennu. And it was small, not giant, had short little legs. They were foldable because he was holding them, and this long beak, much longer and really beaky curve. I mean, much more than the picture I tried to find to put in there. And the eyes were much bigger than that little picture I cut out and put in there. I was doing the best I could with what art I could find. But it was a real long beak, really big eyes, and not a very big bird. And I don't know how long the feet were, but it wasn't stork-like, just little feet, little legs. So, and I feel that was a real, genuine bird that was chosen to represent this cosmic experience or beingness. And that bird, I guess, went extinct, I'm imagining, because it doesn't seem to be anywhere.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of regarded in the same category as the phoenix, I suppose.
Yeah.
In that way. And yeah, I just asked about the heron because I was in a friend's meditation garden earlier this year, and lo and behold, there was this enormous heron in the middle of a major city. And
well,
meditation garden. So
it
felt very, there are these symbolic visitations by totem animals or symbolic animals who come into our,
of course, and Thoth is represented by the ibis, which is a very close to the heron and all
very
that.
close to the heron, exactly. So let's get to the map. The time map that we're calling it. And so you saw these two Egyptians, presumably in some kind of priestly role, who had this map of Egyptian gods and hieroglyphs, and that it was in what you called an exalted timeline, that there were figures on this map of time of souls who were going to have to make the right choices at certain points in the map in order to either keep us on the right timeline or sort of reunite us to the Rana Time Wave.
Yes.
Perhaps the purpose of this time map is to help us heal the Kali rift. Would that be right?
Yes, indeed. And the reason, what I say about it, a lot of things I want to say about it, and it's all exploding in my head at once. So let me try to get my words together here. One thing is that the map itself that they were attempting to, through divine ordinance, create. So the Pharaoh, overlighted by Osiris, was receiving information, but his wife was creating the map, and she had her own connection.
Okay.
It was kind of like he was going, not that he was clueless or anything, but he really didn't, he wasn't the divine feminine in that particular incarnation, she was. And so there was a reciprocity there between the masculine and the feminine in coalescing this information.
I see.
The map. And they weren't hot. He was a pharaoh and she was his pharaohess, I guess, or priest,
Queen.
So
right.
they weren't priests and priestesses in the traditional sense. Of course, he was a priest king, I guess you could say. But how this came about, I didn't get all the information, but obviously he had an experience. He had an epiphany. And in that epiphany, he realized that he was connecting to this Osirian being, into the cosmic Osiris state of consciousness, however way he wanted to interpret that. I think it was pretty close on. And she intuitively recognized the truth of that. And when he brought this through, he was like, well, now what do I do with it? And she went, aha.
Mm-hmm.
And she had her vision. She had her experience. She was the map maker. He was the oracle and she was the map maker. But God was the oracle as well, of course, because she was receiving part of it. So we have this map. Okay. So what is the map really? It's showing specific points in the timelines that were coming out into the future, as well as probably the past, from their future, that would be potential points to adjust the timelines so that they could go into flow with a Kali rift. Not just one point. You can't say, oh, this happened, so now everything is fine. No, it's adjustment. It's like chiropractor. It's like this muscle, bone, this has to go through this whole process to get it into the right synchronization. And of course, we know that there's never only one thing that's going to do this. There are other things that are going on too. But this obviously was a major, major thing for them to have this revelation, for them to create this map. And as I said on the video, since time is not really linear, but toroidal, I have trouble saying that word.
Toroidal, yeah.
Toroidal, there, I can't say it. Anyway, it, you know, it's still happening. She's there working on that map. He's telling her things. Just think of that. We're sitting here now. You're listening to us. We're doing this now. At the very same quote unquote moment, if we choose to connect toroidally, that was an even harder word, we can become a part of that. We can feel that presence as if we're sitting in the room with them and they're sharing with us.
All right, so let me ask you a question. You know, if we do that, and depending on our degree of receptivity or intuition or ability to immediately understand, is it possible for us to understand a key moment that might be coming, that is on their map, that we might be guided to make in our own lives, in our own way, a choice that, small as it might be, could impact the timeline, the time, you know, bring us closer to healing the Kali rift and get us out of this mess?
Yes. Well, there's several layers to answer that question. One is yes, from what you're saying right there, but it's not like we're going, oh, I get it, I have to do this. It's not that. You become part of the field. You're feeling that energy. You're feeling it. And if you don't want to picture yourself being in the room with them, you can picture something else. I mean, it's like, but the idea is to feel a part of the creation of a map that is literally denoting, not creating it, but denoting the points of egress and exit of certain energy fields that align with people and what they do, their actions. You know, actions speak louder than words, right? Well, the actions count, but they have to have, of course, the spirit behind them. So it's both. And so as these points are being made and we're kind of feeling that that is happening, we organically can become synchronized to that. Now, being synchronized doesn't mean you use your brain. Oh, maybe I should go out to the grocery store today. Maybe that would make a difference. No, it's not that. It's like you just become synchronized, like you're synchronizing your watch, you know, and it just brings you into that synchronicity and you just naturally follow the path.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, as we're discussing this, I want to be obvious here. This is not the only way that we can connect to these things. You don't have to listen to this video to do it, but this is a way. This is something that Thoth gave me for a purpose. And that purpose is that despite if anybody even knows what went on then, and they never hear this video and they never hear any of this stuff, it happened. And it's happening now. So even if you aren't synchronizing yourself with it, it's still helping the planet, because in identifying these points, it actually is like acupuncture. It's stimulating those points. You remember how quantum physics works. Right. What you observe changes the effect. They were observing and they were pinpointing. They were changing it for the better, not because they were super beings, but because they had undertaken this dedication that was given to them to do. Most of the most powerful things that are given to people to do are not given to saints. I'm not putting saints down, but they're given to people, ordinary, well, maybe little not quite so ordinary at times, but you know, they're human. They're human beings. They have faults, they have doubts, they have fears, and maybe they don't meditate all day long or things like that, but they're dedicated. They're saying, well, I'm going to do my best. I'm here to help. What can I do? Oh, you want me to do that? Well, I have to think about it. but you know, most of the time we go, okay, yes, I thought about it. I'm going to do it, you know? So it's like we stumble, we fall, but we're dedicated. We move forward. And that was true of these two people. So I don't want to turn them into gods or some great beings. They were just people in that sense, but obviously they were chosen. You have to say that for this. But why were they chosen? They were chosen because they were willing to do it. Really?
Right. It's that old, you know, saying, many are called, but few are chosen. And few are chosen because few choose to be chosen.
Right, exactly,
You know,
exactly.
it's up to
So,
us to choose to be chosen. It's like,
so this map, so to conclude my little spiel here, this map is a living thing. It's coming right out of the Rana wave, which is a living flow. The Rana wave is not a timeline. It's the flow. It's the whole flow of universal consciousness, beyond consciousness, that says, this is the heart that I'm delivering to you through the, Thoth used to call it, not the Rana time flow, but there's a strain of energy that dedicates itself to higher intelligence and bringing the message. And Thoth used to call it the nebula strain. Well, that was before I wrote that in that science thing I wrote back in 1967 or something. And it was the first science that I ever brought through, the one that Edgar Mitchell liked and read through and everything. Anyway, the nebula strain was what he called it. Well, the Rana time flow is just literally sucking the marrow out of the nebula strain. And it's moving the time, the flow of time, not the timelines, but the flow of that divine concordance. It's moving it like a serpent in space. And the timelines are like the little minnows going, okay, here we come, you know, and they're connecting to it and flowing along with it. And every once in a while, somebody says, get out of the way. And some little minnow goes flying off into outer space. And we have to go, come back.
what, you mean like an errant timeline that we need to recalibrate?
Right. I'm getting kind of silly now, but I don't know how else to
Right, as the
explain
Mandela effect, the Mandela minnow. I think we're talking about
Right.
Mandela minnows here.
Right. So anyway, I got off the track, but the point is that this is a living thing. The map that she mapped, she was mapping something that was there. There was already a living thing. And in mapping it, in identifying it in sacred space, as they did in sacred spirit, they were affecting it, because everything in quantum reality, if you observe it, you change it.
All right. So from our end, we can do the same thing.
Yes.
You know, we're here in this moment. We can map time and sacred space also and tune in with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That now, okay, we don't have this unique, you know, pharaonic Egypt creation of this, you know, map of the gods and hieroglyphs and whatever, you know, mystery school energetics that they imbued it with, presumably. But I mean, I'm reminded of a story that you shared. I don't know if we shared this on the Blue Star Rising or not, about the Revolutionary War America and Saint-Germain coming to the it was either the Continental Congress and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, or in 1789, the Constitutional Convention, you know, that created the U.S. Constitution. But that there was an inner circle within the founding fathers, consisting, I believe, you know, Thomas Jefferson, Washington, and a couple of others who were, let's say, not necessarily initiates of a specific secret society or an inner circle of Freemasons or, you know, latent Templars or whatever, but that Saint-Germain had shared with them. I mean, you bring up in the opening minutes of the video that you saw Saint-Germain, and
Yes.
that he had this special coin that he was flipping backwards and forwards in his hand, and that he meant it to look sort of like an idle gesture, but in fact, he was, you know, it's like creating portal openings, you said,
Mm-hmm.
right? That
was what was
it was a very
expressed.
special coin that he had created for that purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a device that was shared by Saint-Germain with certain founding fathers that you told us there was a moment at which they were present in a private meeting with this device, and they had been told by Saint-Germain, this can heal the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this can heal the Kali Rift. This can dramatically affect the course of America, of the United States,
Yes, it
Right.
wouldn't be the only thing that could heal. We have to,
No, not the only thing, but
but it
that
was important. It was
it
important.
was important.
Mm.
And then apparently Saint-Germain left on another one of his mysterious missions. And so they, Washington and Jefferson and a couple other people, I might have been there as somebody's nephew, I think you said, sitting there, and it's like, okay, you want to do it, or I'm going to do it. Somebody's going to do this. We're going to mess with time here. Anybody want to do this? I was like, why don't we just leave it be? The decision was made.
At the last
I don't know,
minute,
it's
we
too
decided
risky. We don't know
to
what we're doing. We're not Saint-Germain. Let's just put the thing away, and who knows what became of it.
Yeah.
Was that something like this?
Well, yes, that would have been on the map. There's no question about it. Even though they didn't do it, not doing it is taking an action. The action is not to do it.
Right.
So that would have been on the map. And it's not like they failed horribly, because that moment is still there in time. What if somebody went back and said, on a map, and touched that and said, ding, push the button, boys.
So then we find ourselves in a different timeline, and suddenly, like the Beatles never existed, or J.K. Rowling never wrote Harry Potter, or something like that.
We have to have those things in every timeline, including Beatles,
We
Elvis.
need the Beatles and Harry Potter
and Elvis. They have to all.
And Elvis. What's a timeline without the king?
Right. So, but I'm simplifying it, of course, but the point is there's these potentials are involved. So you can't say, well, that's past. It's not past. Nothing is past. When you think of the quantum field and quantum physics and how it operates, you can't say, well, I can't do anything about that. It's already been done. It's in the past.
Right.
Maybe it's meant to be left in the past, as it is.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to go fiddling around with everything, but maybe not. Maybe at some point, the magic moment and the magic words, the magic whatever comes about, and it's just, and that little point has been changed. And you'll never know it, will you? Because it'll seem like it was always that way. And Thoth says that happens more than you realize.
Well, you're on a different timeline, or time has been fixed and is closer to the Rana Time Wave. Part of the Kali Rift has been fixed, but from one moment to the next, I'm just suddenly remembering the entire past of a timeline that 10 seconds ago didn't exist. That is too freaky. I'm sorry. I just lose it with this kind of stuff. I just go, oh, wait a minute.
Well, it's not like this is happening dramatically every minute. That would be chaos.
Right.
These are micro things that happen. Usually they're micro, but there are times when it's a little more than micro. Now, if you want to look at the Mandela effect, for instance, and we're not going to go way off, because that could be a show on its own from the Thothic perspective. But, what happened there was a glitch that was caused by the Hadron Accelerator.
Collider.
Yeah. I do agree with, I think other people have said that, but Thoth agrees with that. However, it's a little more complicated than that. And I can't even remember. I'd have to go back and look at my notes. But, that kind of thing can happen where it was changed, but not for everybody. Now, generally, it would be changed for everybody. But if you have a machine involved, you might have a glitch, and it's not changed for everybody. However, it can also occur. There are other reasons that could occur too. And we're getting close to possibly that happening, not through a machine, but just through the circumstances of cosmic events that are coming down upon us. Because, Thoth speaks of the division of worlds and how we're already being separated, and we can see that. And we go, well, why does everything have to be separated? Aren't we supposed to be unified? Why is the universe separating us? The universe is not separating us. The universe is uniting us. And the only way it can do it is to separate us first.
Sheep and the goats, right?
Yeah, right. Well, and also, in alchemy, there is the separation so they can be the divine conjuncto. If something is not in order, it has to be separated and, reset, so to speak. And then it comes back into sacred conjuncto. And that's the way things are always doing. They're going like this, like pulling taffy, because it has to have that recycling. Yeah. So we're at a point here, and we haven't been for a long, long time. I won't say we've never been, but never been on this planet. We've never been at this degree dramatic degree of point,
Yeah.
where in order to get to what Thoth calls, as you've heard me talk about it, and I'm not sure even what it is, the pyramidus radius matrix, the pyramidus radius moment, where we literally, we're not ascended yet, but we're going into another stage of our reality consciousness while still being so much so on this earth. But it's so separate from those who are going down the path with the really corrupted consciousness. There's no other way to put it, that they and us will be separated somehow. I don't get it. Like you said, I can't get that. I can't get it. But I'm just saying that Thoth is telling me this. He's been telling me this since 80 something. And that's, that's when what we're preparing for, to get back to the map, what we're preparing for is to be able to come to, I don't know the word to use here, install into our being the quantum movement it takes for us to say, I'm following the true reality. True reality, we're not talking about belief systems or politics or anything like that. We're talking about a holographic spectrum of godness, of God light, if you don't want to use God, divine source light, that is guiding us into the Kali Rift, to connection with that. And we're not
Rana Time Wave, you mean, is guiding us.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And us back to the.
I know that was a faux pas for sure. Not the Kali Rift, the Rana Time Wave. There's so many words here. But the Kali Rift is involved because those who are not, I guess that's why it came up in that sentence, are not, willing to do that. They are going down the Kali Rift. Big time. And it's not God pointing his finger. It's not any of us making the decision that they don't belong with us. It's nothing like that. It's energy, it's frequency, it's vibration, it's spirit, period. And so we need to be ready to go forward. And you'd think, oh, well, I'm ready. I got my suitcase packed. I'm all ready. I want to go. It's a good thing. It's nice to say that, to feel that on the surface. But when the moment comes,
Right. It's like that. A couple of things here where, like you say, you don't have to ascribe to a belief system or see this video or anything like that to be able to tune in with this true flow of time, this divine energetic. I'm reminded of how, for example, Sri Dayamata, who was the successor to Paramahansa Yogananda as the Reverend Mother, President of Self-Realization Fellowship, the first woman to head a worldwide spiritual organization starting in 1955. And she, of course, was in touch with Vedic astrologers. And Yogananda wrote about astrology in his autobiography. And his guru, Sri Yukteswar, was a master Vedic astrologer who, recommended the use of a bangle to ward off certain energies. But the emphasis was always on, the soul is king, and the zodiac, it's just a map. It's good to look at, but it's just a map. And so Sri Dayamata would not consult astrologers about what to do when. She had her own deep inner knowing. And when astrologers would come to her later or something, it would turn out that she had perfectly and intuitively aligned her efforts, what she did, what she didn't do, her timing, what she chose, was in, perfect alignment for the right thing to do, given what the zodiac influences were at the time. But it was because she was in the intuitive flow. She had tuned in. It wasn't like, oh, I got to call my astrologer. What should I do today? What should I do today? As sovereign beings, we can tune into the divine. We don't need a psychic or an astrologer. We have our soul intuition and ability to tune in. So I'd like to talk about the goddess Newt that you bring up, right? Which is
the sky goddess.
The sky goddess, sort of analogous to Maha Prakriti from how you were describing, that she sends her rays of her creation through the whirling pillar, her cosmic rays create the Elohim of creation. And that there's something about climbing upward into the sacred pyramid temple, which is a primary node in the time map as a creatrix for the new earth, that it is her role to expand generative radiance. I love that phrase. And so we're talking about climbing upward into the sacred pyramid temple. We're using that in relation to, the pyramidus radius matrix, which is, of course, this lighting up of the pyramids, known and unknown, all around the planet as the kickoff, if you will, to the ascension process. When you're describing climbing upward into the sacred pyramid temple as a primary node in the time map, was that about the pyramidus radius?
No, actually, of course, everything's related. So I wouldn't say absolutely no, because obviously this is a part of the function of the pyramid radius. But the greater pyramid that she's speaking about is climbing into the geometry of what the pyramid represents, that not just represents, but the pyramid energizes in the cosmos. Everything we have on this planet that is in divine order, like a pyramid or a hexagon or a sphere or square, all has its divine components in the universe. So this pyramid frequency is climbing into the lap of Osiris, which is Orion. Orion is the seat of this universe's, now, and I want to be careful, I want to be very specific while I say this as I can. This universe's birthing chamber and perpetual existence. Now, that's a lot to say. So a scientist would say right away, hey, Orion, there's a lot of other constellations out there where you can't say Orion created the universe. Of course not. But you see, you have to look at it from a quantum perspective, and the role that the constellation of Orion is, specifically the trapezium within Orion. You can look this stuff up. Its stars, and then the trapezium. It is the birthing chamber of the holographic and spiritual projection that creates our universe. It's hard to get your mind around this too, I know, but when we look out billions of miles past Orion or anything, and we're seeing stars and galaxies out there, we are looking at it from the perspective of our holograph, and our holograph was created in Orion. Now, there's a lot to that I don't understand, so I can't talk about it.
Right.
I'm telling you what I know. I think I know, of course. I don't really know anything.
Well, it reminds me, and I know I often go back to Yogananda, but it's a good place to go back to, that his description of superconsciousness, an experience in samadhi, that he begins to perceive his own soul expanding, enveloping towns, continents, the earth, the solar system, galaxies, nebulae floating in space. And there's a certain phrase he says, I cognized the center of the Empyrean, meaning the celestial vision. I cognized the center of the Empyrean as a point of intuitive perception in my heart. That, in this holographic sense, it is, the universe is just, vibrating waves of light and energy and particles, and it doesn't assume the reality that we call reality until it is received and interpreted and made into a world from an intuitive point of perception in our heart, mind.
Absolutely.
Reality. That's science, folks. This is not just, just fantasy. And of course, Orion, one star. I mean, Rigel is, okay, it's the point of the sword. Well, it's, 100 million light years from the other star in constellation Orion. It just appears as the hunter with the belt to us. And yet it is this nexus of some kind, yes? Well,
as important as Orion, as Rigel is to the creation of this planet, specifically like a cozy relationship, you might say.
Right.
It's just that. It's not the end all. But we have to look at beyond into the trapezium of the nebula of Orion to find the goods. That's where it is. And so when we're creating a universe, it doesn't mean that it's fake. It doesn't mean that those stars really aren't out there. But we would find that if we could travel, like the propelling systems that we have now, and let's say we had, zillion million years to do this, no problemo, we just fire up the rockets and go, we cannot get there in a zillion million years. There's a point where you can't get any further with disrupting the atoms. It's just like, nope, not go any further, because you hit the boundary of your holographic sensuality. I want to call it sensuality. I don't know why, but that's the word that's coming.
I like that, holographic sensuality.
And it's not going any further. When beings travel to other stars and whatever gazillion miles away, they're not doing it that way. They're going through wormholes and whatever. But even that, we think about these the ETs, the bug-eyed guys and the reptilians and all of these scary ones that come in. We think, they're so advanced, they can fly everywhere, they can go all the other side of the universe. They can't. They have technology way beyond ours, but it's child's play compared to what the spiritual companions of Horus, the solar lords, what do you want to call all these other beings that are, our divine kindred can do. It's child's play. And Thoth said one time, and I think have to credit him with a sense of humor, he said, they're all dressed up with no place to go because they got all this technology and they can only go certain places because they don't have, wait for it, the Imstra molecule. They don't have that energy molecule within them that says we can go where no man's gone before, no beast has gone before, no ET's gone before. We can do it. And guess who has it? We do.
Right. And that is
ironic.
Let me understand. So that the Amsterdam molecule, we're talking about the capacity for omnipresence.
Yes, exactly.
We
have it and we're going, what's this? We don't even know how to use it, but they don't have it. And that's why they're taking us apart and hybrid this and all this stuff, try to get in this thing. And it's not going to work that way. And you think they wouldn't be dumb enough to keep trying, but Thoth told me, well, they have a different way of looking at things. So, it's not that they're dumb. They just think they have all the time in the world and they'll just apply it until they get what they want. But
that's a really good reminder for everyone. I also want to touch on the link between Osiris and Christ. Because actually it does occur to me, not only in many instances before in which you have shared your understanding of the intimate link between the soul of Osiris when it was actually incarnate, because many of course of these figures that later became deities in the Egyptian pantheon were actual human being incarnations like Isis and others, and that there was an intimate link between the soul of Yeshua and Osiris.
Yeah. And
so would it be accurate to say that when we're talking about, as we do later here, we're talking about the Yeshuda, that the Christ consciousness are we talking the same words to refer to it as Osiris consciousness? It is essentially, the divine conscious vibration that is permeated through every atom in the universe. And it's just so as not to get people mixed up about, they're forgetting Christ, so they just bring him in at the end, that there is this misunderstood link, that people, of course, tend to localize the cosmic Christ to the body of the man Jesus, in 33 AD, rather than
well, he embodied that fully, fully as we can understand it,
right?
Just as Thoth embodied the Thothic vibration, but he was a man too. But back to Osiris. Osiris is not the Christ consciousness. And Osiris is not the soul that was the pure soul that animated Yeshua in his Christic mantle. However, according to Thoth, and he entered the body of Jesus at some point in time, I can't remember right now, And so that that he I think he even came in first, and then
Right,
so,
just at birth
soul,
for a while, and then during
yeah, then the pure
crucifixion.
soul came in, because the pure soul had never been incarnated before, not on any planet, any place. And that pure soul came in, and that was the soul that at the time of baptism accepted the mantle of the archangelic Christos. That's what Thoth calls. And when he did that, Osiris said, okay, I served my purpose, out of here. And he came back when Yeshua was having to go through the suffering on the cross. Osiris came back. Osiris has got the knowledge of matter, of creation of matter, and to sustain that matter, to function in that matter, to support that matter spiritually. That's the Osiris soul. Okay, we're talking about a soul now. And the Osiris soul is intimately linked to the Osirian presence in the universe, in our universe, that is the same function. Let's get this, let's keep this together here. So he was needed in the body with the pure soul. The pure soul is just here for one thing. I am God, godness incarnate here, and I am creating this spectrum for all humanity. But I'm in a body. Oh, okay. And I'm in this human body, a human person, son of a carpenter, need a little help here. And that's why the other soul came in to say, when Moses had to hold his staff up to parting the sea, and he got tired, and Aaron came up and grabbed his arm and helped him hold up the staff. Well, that's Osiris, helping to hold up that staff, So that's the relationship soul-wise, but it's also the relationship, if you stretch it out a little bit, to the divine chemistry of the universal consciousness.
I see. Wow. Okay, yeah, that clarifies it for me. I want to talk about the role that each of us can play. There's this beautiful part of the video you made. Our role, our vision, how we can walk this path. And I think, particularly for 2022 coming up for us all now, that, in order to bring this into the reality that we're all facing right now, that I found this, helpful and inspiring, the focus of it. It's actually possible to keep it simple. The upheaval and the anxiety and the divisiveness that that we're all seeing here, it's very easy to get disoriented and frightened. And so I'll read this. It's just that our role, for those of us who are tuning in to our ability to help heal the Kali Rift, is to unmask. I love that word, right? To unmask fearlessly and shine the light of who we are. And just that phrase alone, I think, can be so powerful for us. We ask ourselves, okay, how am I masking who I really am? What choices am I holding back from making that would be expressive of who I really am? What risks have I been afraid to take in order to just fully step out as who I am? And shine your light as who you truly are. Now, of course, yes, use prudence and all that, but I think prudence needs to take a little bit of a backseat, given what's going on. And then you talk about what's the vision that can inspire us and hold us on. It's to keep our eyes on the path, and don't let distractions overcome us, because, it's just so easy for that to happen now, when we all have, our lives to live, and relationships, and the personal happiness that we want, and fulfilling our joyful service to the divine, to me, is the greatest happiness you can have. And then when we say, don't let distractions overcome you, to me, that's about keeping your priorities straight and doing everything necessary to keep our frequency and vibration high, to stay in a vibration of love and compassion and service, and to ask ourselves, okay, what path? What choice can I make in this moment? And again, if we're tuning in, it'll come more naturally. What choice can I make that will be more expressive of my truer self, that will give me the deep joy of service and knowing that I've fulfilled my life's purpose, just to meditate and pray for guidance along that path, and not to be distracted by like, oh my gosh, is my upset, it's like, my husband did this, or my brother did that, or my boss did this, and the governor of my state just issued this mandate. All right, what's the forward path of service and making the hard choices
Yes,
to
and
stay in high frequency, because there are some places we should not be, some people we should not be with.
that's right.
In order, and we have to pray for guidance and make those choices ourselves. To hold firmly, this is the phrase you said, hold firmly to the golden thread, leading us to the threshold of the star of our becoming. Hold firmly to the golden thread, leading us to the threshold of the star of our becoming. I really loved that. Let our sight be filled with the glory of the station we represent on earth. Your unique contribution. It's like, okay, you, beloved friend, you have yours, I honor it. This is mine. This is who I am. Bless you in yours.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the cutting edge right now, I think for all of us, it certainly is for me, I'm not putting myself out of this picture, is to follow that and that still stay engaged with the world. And by engaged, I don't mean sucked into it.
Right.
I mean, you're still of the world. I mean, you're part of it, physically, and where your next meal comes from, or what your family member happens to your family member, if it gets or whatever. These are all important things in your life. It's not, oh, that's not important, I've just got to follow my path. Of course it's important. But following your path means getting the right signals to help you with these things, to help you make the decisions you need to make in a very real 3D world that we are still a part of. And doing that is going to help you refine and define and refine your path. So it goes, it's reciprocity between the two of them. So it's important to think, yeah, I need to deal with this, or I need to make a decision on this, need to support my family member here, or do that. But what is the highest point of reference that I can summon from my path without losing sight of that path while you're doing this? Is almost like you're going to have vision, what they call that peripheral vision.
Right, blinders like a horse on a racetrack.
Yeah, you've got to have vision on every side. You can't have blinders and say, this is my path, this is my path. You've got to open that peripheral vision. You're focused on your path, but you see what's going on the sidelines of your life.
Right.
You take an action. You can't check out. You have to assume a higher frequency to involve yourself in what needs to be done in the 3D. And the only way you can do that is to not lose sight of that frequency, that path. The path is not like, well, I don't know what my path is. We're not talking about, well, you're going to be a fortune teller, you're going to be a cook, you're going to be, no. The path is that frequency that just pulls you forward, and you feel it. And it's there. Even when you get lopsided at times, it's over there waiting for me. I need to get back in touch with that.
Yeah. You also said, what can facilitate the journey best. And it's simple. It's to help one another, love, compassion, giving of self.
Yes.
And again, it's a fine line to walk, to be sovereign in ourselves, and we are unified in spirit. And yeah, again, that's, okay, what is true compassion? What is tough love? As they say, when you need to make a choice to keep your vibration high, your frequency high, and perhaps choose not to associate so much with certain people who have been your friends or loved ones. It's it's a delicate balance.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But those tough decisions are things that we haven't even begun to. We think, oh well, I've made tough decisions in my life. It's coming up. you're going to find out that those were nothing compared to the tough decisions you have to make now. And I know that's kind of dire to say that, but that's what Thoth tells me. And I just have to be truthful. So
Yeah,
how do we deal with that? We deal with it by making it lighter. We shine the light into it. And there, you know, like that old saying, angels can fly because they take themselves so lightly. I love that. Anyway,
right.
same thing. You've got to put that light in it. And then it doesn't seem so heavy. Then it doesn't seem so horrible. Then it doesn't seem, you know, it's still tough, but you've got that power behind you. And I saw a video today that I've been sharing around. So maybe I shared it with some of you. Excuse me. It's very short. And it has to do, I can't remember the name of the fellow or anything, but it was very well done. And it has to do with being the spiritual warrior and what a spiritual warrior really means. Not somebody that's out there trying to pick a fight, but one that really desires to follow that light source and will do what it takes in a spiritual way to get there. And a lot of times that has to do with tough love, tough decisions, and sometimes even in dire situations, self-defense. But that's the last resort.
Right. It's those who get ready will have peace of mind. This comes from Jean Nolan. Jean Nolan. It's a man.
Was that the one I sent you?
The one you sent me. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
And it says, we are going through the greatest transformation in recent human history. Simply winning this spiritual battle won't be enough. We have to be strong, loving, peaceful, and prepared.
Yes.
Prepared. And it's simply about, you know, the tough choices that we're going to have to make, that people are already having to make. You know, people are being put in quarantine camps now. Mm-hmm. People, you know, are being prevented from banking or shopping or, you know, seeing their loved ones in the hospital now. You know, this is happening now, and the agenda is ramping up for this. And it's like, okay, make ourselves independent of the matrix, having your own, being able to provide for yourself and your family, and to have like-minded families in community where you can provide your own food, your own water. You can, you know, trade and do business within, you know, a new system, localized systems, whatever it takes in order to be, you know, to unplug from the matrix, because staying plugged into the matrix is going to have a frightening cost. And, you know, it's, oh, don't worry, just be a good boy or girl. Everything's going to be fine. Just take this little shot. Everything's going to be fine, you know, and we know better. So it's about being self-sustaining. And, you know, here in Southern Colorado, that's very much a focus of the community where we live.
Yes.
And there are some, you know, really viable projects around the country, similar around the world. And these will be the places where it's like we're just disengaging from the matrix, from the control system, living our own lives, providing for our families, being self-sustaining. Now, push may come to shove, you know, with the system trying to come down on us, and everybody will have to make their own choices at a certain point. You know, we're just minding our own business, taking care of our families. Thank you very much. I mean, as he says in this video, you know, a true warrior is one who never has to fight.
Yes.
You know,
Exactly.
that is the truly prepared, peaceful warrior who is there and ready for self-defense should it arise, but is the absolute last resort. And that's what we're being called to. And it's, yes, as you say, you know, that if we think we've had to make tough choices so far, the next few years, and especially I think, you know, 2022, it's like, you know, in 2020, we couldn't imagine being where we are now.
Oh, no.
And
although, if you recall, I'm not going to repeat it now, but you know, the Thoth message for 2020, remember what that said? And I was going, what does he mean by that? and then all of a sudden,
specifically?
It was, oh, you remember that? The 2020 message from Thoth. I mean, he was talking about it. I mean, not
talking about what specifically?
Well, he said, you know, when we get through the corridor of the 2019 and we come into the Great Hall, and there were, I can't repeat it, but, you know, I couldn't fathom what he was talking about. I said, it didn't sound too good, but I didn't know what it
Yeah.
meant. And when all this hit, I go back and read it and I go, oh my God, there it is. Yeah, I can't repeat it now. I'll put a link. I'll give you to put a link to it in the 2020 because it really fits.
Okay.
It wasn't just about 2020. Again, it wasn't this year. He was giving it for 2020, but it was obviously meant.
Yeah, it's the coming. It's
Yeah.
the coming.
Yeah,
Unfolding.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is. Again, we have all the tools we need, and this the Yeshuda that you describe, this movement of emptying and filling the cup that is the containment field stimulated through cosmic Christ consciousness. It's a natural dynamic which emanates from the central sun atoma of every planet that contains incarnated souls, projects out from the center of the planet. It's called by the central sun of the galaxy, which is called by the central sun of the universe. It feeds sparks back into the atoma and sent back out with new light programs into our human soul spectrum. And this is the primary mechanism for ascension, right? That through its receiving and pouring out, it is the grail.
And
it
folks,
is the grail of our first and final hour and everything in between. So go ahead. I'm just
I
quoting you.
Make a joke, and I thought it was so funny. I couldn't wait to say it.
Go ahead.
And Michael memorized that whole thing that you just heard.
Right. I just pulled it off the top of my head, along with the first 30 pages of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Marley was dead to begin with.
Oh, no.
About that. No, stop him. Somebody stop him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well,
right. Yeah.
So time is toroidal. They're still there working the map, and we're here at our end working our maps. And it feels like we've reached a good wrap-up point. Do you have anything else?
It has. I just want to finalize it in saying, and it's not even just about this map. It's about the fact that we're not alone. We're not alone. And you'd want to say, well, okay, if we're not alone, why don't they come down here and fix this mess? No, because we created the mess. But we are being helped by people from the past, people from the future, people, our star kindred, our inner earth kindred. They're all helping us in ways we can't even begin to imagine. Well, I can imagine some of them because I got a little insight there, but mostly we can't imagine. And it's there. Just, you don't have to know exactly what it is, but you can reach out to it and you can touch it. It's visceral when you move into a space and say, I know there's this whole light force working for this planet. And I'm a part of that. Remember, Thoth says that the inner light network is not just about them, it's about us as well.
Right.
So we can connect to the rest of our light workers and say, guide me, help me to do what needs to be done. I'm here. I raise my hand.
Yeah. Help me out. Yeah. We've made the mess. We have to clean it. Right. But
Yes,
we have help. But we have help.
It
reminds me of a George Harrison song that he did with Traveling Wilburys. And he goes, I've been uptight and made a mess, but I'll clean it up myself, I guess. Oh, the sweet smell of success. Handle me with care. And then he sings, I'm so tired of being lonely. I still have some love to give. Won't you show me that you really care? So that's what we want. It's like, okay, we can tune in because there is this network of brothers and sisters and
there is
angelics and highly evolved beings, and the transdimensional upstairs,
And we also must remember to hug our kitties.
Hug her, insufferably cute, inconceivably cute. That cat is the king of cute, right? This is Nim, right?
He's a new addition to the family.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I've been over there the other day to visit Maia. That cat he's about as big as my fist. That's how big he is. He is incredibly tiny and incredibly cute. Anyway, so with that adorable note.
Yes, and also we're going to end it with the solstice prayer, remember? Solstice prayer.
All right. So there's a wonderful solstice prayer that will immediately succeed this program. And so thank you so much for being with us. And we wish you all the merriest of Christmases and happiest of New Year's and brightest of lit up solstices that ever took place on any planet throughout the cosmos ever. So, yeah, go God bless us, everyone, as Tiny Tim would say, and we will see you next time.
We beseech the archangelic hierarchies of the divine house, governing this planet, to issue forth streaming cords of light upon this manger sphere in the time of remembrance of the holy birth. May the worlds of the earth, both inner and outer, unite in the blessing of nature as the midnight sun arrives at the center of the earth. May the dwellers of this volatile sphere be quieted to hear the celestial chords in the resonating hollow with joyous hallelujahs in the memory of the child of Christed love. May their sight be opened as the stable gate, and may they be given vision of the holy procession to the cradle of eternal birth. Leading this march of glory is the Mother Grace of the planet, indwelling in the virgin soul. Also among them that touch the earth at this time are the nature soli, or animal souls, who have received the edict of transformation, raising them to passage from the nature world into a condition of Holy Spirit. The souls of the children who have passed from light habitation this year will be present in the procession to experience the Christ light in its glorious luminescence. May all earth's kind receive, as these children, in the warmth of this divine rebirth, which is given to the earth each winter solstice. May earth come to the threshold of sacred destiny and receive her escort of the 10,000, the angelic guard. May her Madonna beauty gaze upon the humanity she suckles. In mercy, may humanity be restored to its throne of stars. We testify for those who have been muted by their generation. We speak for them that they may be lifted from the pit's edge and so receive their peace. Amen.